There are things in life that only begin to make sense once we reach a certain stage. Flirting is one of them. At 50 or 60, when impulsiveness has given way to calmness, and striking up conversations is no longer a daily habit, many men start to feel like they're standing on the sidelines of an emotional stage. Not because they're no longer attractive, not because women have stopped caring, but because the signals of flirtation are no longer loud and obvious. They've become subtle and delicate. Women in midlife or beyond don't show interest with lingering glances or bold words like they did in their 20s. Instead, they might ask a question that seems casual, laugh just a little longer, or simply choose to sit near you at a gathering. And sadly, many men don't notice these moments. They brush them off, thinking it's just someone being polite. Some even believe they're imagining things. The result, meaningful chances for connection slip quietly away. But if you can be fully present, pay close attention, and respond with sincerity, you'll begin to realize that flirting in midlife is no longer a game. It's an art, a quiet dance of awareness and kindness. And once you understand that language, you won't just revive your emotional life. You may discover a bond more genuine and lasting than anything you found in your younger years. This video doesn't aim to teach you how to become a master of flirting. It's not about turning you into someone you're not. All it hopes to offer is a gentle reminder to help you notice and respond to the emotional signals women send through words, glances, or small gestures, all in a way that's natural, masculine, and true to who you are. Because sometimes all it takes is the right response, the right look at the right moment, and you just might open the door to a beautiful, unexpected new chapter in your emotional life. Part 1. Why men over 50 often miss flirting signals. Not everyone realizes that flirting doesn't stop after you turn 50. It simply changes form. At this stage of life, many men still crave closeness and emotional connection, yet they often miss clear signals from women, not because those signals aren't there, but because they no longer look like what they used to know when they were younger. Instead of bold words or obvious glances, women in midlife express interest in ways that are more subtle and layered. It might be a question that seems casual but is actually a gentle invitation, a smile that lingers a bit longer than usual, a quiet gesture of care without any overt suggestion. These kinds of signals require a man to be truly present, to sense not just with his eyes but with intuition and sincere attention. Social and emotional factors also play a role in why many men overlook these moments. After experiences like divorce, the loss of a partner, or simply years of living in loneliness, some men become more cautious in emotional interactions. They begin to doubt themselves. They believe they've lost their charm, or they assume that when a woman approaches, it's out of politeness rather than interest. This feeling of being invisible in social life makes it even harder to recognize the positive signals others may be sending their way. The shifting nature of gender roles over time also adds complexity. When they were younger, men were expected to take the lead. But in midlife, the line between being proactive and being respectful becomes blurry. Many fear being misunderstood. They worry about overstepping or making someone uncomfortable. So they choose silence, and in doing so, they miss out on small moments that could have become the beginning of something beautiful, simply because they weren't sure if the woman was truly interested. There are tiny moments that may seem insignificant at first glance, but if noticed and responded to with care, they can open the door to a whole new journey. A slower glance, a question with deeper meaning, a gentler smile. All of these are invitations to connect. But if we don't learn to listen and respond, those invitations will pass us by as if they never existed. Part 2. 8 subtle questions and what they really mean. Question 1. How old are you really? This is one of the most common opening questions that women in midlife often use to gently probe a man's confidence and attitude toward life. Behind what seems like a harmless bit of curiosity lies something much more meaningful. Women aren't truly concerned with the number. What they want to sense is whether you accept yourself as you are, or whether you're trying to hide your age through humor, self-deprecation, or defensiveness. At this stage in life, age is no longer a secret to be kept. It's a meaningful part of your life story. Women want to know if you're living honestly, if you're embracing the journey you've walked, and valuing the experiences life has given you. A man who's not ashamed to mention his real age gives off a quiet strength, a sense of maturity, and a natural kind of charm. How you respond to this question reveals a great deal about your comfort with yourself. If you brush it off with a joke like "I'm older than I look," or too old to say it out loud, you may come across as someone who's hiding something, or perhaps uncomfortable with the reality of aging. But a gentle, thoughtful, and grounded answer can build trust and spark a deeper connection. For example, you might say, I'm old enough to know what matters and young enough to keep living fully each day. That kind of response is not just graceful, it shows that you see time as a gift, not a burden. It suggests that you're living with intention, neither clinging to the past nor worrying too much about the future. There was a time at a small reunion among friends when a woman jokingly asked Mr. Richard, a 58-year-old man, this very question. He didn't rush to answer. Instead, he smiled, looked her in the eye, and said, I've come far enough to truly appreciate a genuine conversation like this one. That answer warmed the moment. And from there, something meaningful quietly began to grow between them. Women aren't looking for numbers. They're looking for a man who knows where he stands in life and isn't afraid to walk forward with someone by his side. That's the quiet magnetism of a man who's grown and who's living truthfully with himself. Question 2. Why haven't you gotten married? When a woman asks this question, what she truly wants to know isn't the full history of your personal life, but rather the current state of your heart. What sounds like a simple question is actually her way of gently exploring whether you're still open to love, or whether you've quietly closed that emotional door long ago. By midlife, the question of marriage is no longer loaded with judgment. Instead, it becomes an invitation for a more meaningful conversation, one where a woman hopes to understand whether you've loved, whether you've hurt, and what choices you've made along the way. More importantly, she wants to know, are you still looking for something real? Women aren't expecting a perfect love story. What they want to see is honesty, a sense of peace with your past, and a heart that's not entirely closed. When asked this question, you don't need to unpack every chapter of your romantic history. What matters most is that your answer feels light, sincere, and leaves the door open. Saying something like, I just haven't met the right person may be true, but it can sound a bit flat. On the other hand, a response like, I'm still waiting for someone special who might change my mind, adds warmth, personality, and most importantly, hope. Women are deeply tuned into emotional cues. When you show openness and avoid deflecting, it gives them a sense of emotional safety, a feeling that they can be themselves around you. And from there, a genuine connection has room to grow. Take the story of Mr. David, a 62-year-old gentleman. At a mutual friend's birthday party, a woman casually asked him, so why haven't you gotten married? He didn't laugh nervously or make up an excuse. He simply said, I came close once, but I guess it takes the right person at the right time, and I still believe it's not too late. That answer made the woman smile softly but meaningfully, and after that night they began seeing each other more often. By this age, the question of marriage isn't an interrogation. It's an opening for a man who's willing to be real, to share his truth, and who still believes in the possibility of love, no matter how many birthdays have passed. When you respond with calmness and sincerity, you're not just answering a question. You're clearing a path for something the two of you might someday walk together. Question 3. Do you date younger women? Beneath this question isn't simple curiosity about your personal preferences. It's a quiet wish to feel seen and valued. When a woman asks you this, she's really trying to find out whether you're genuinely looking for connection, or if you're mostly focused on age and appearance. This is one of the most sensitive questions you may be asked, and also one of the clearest opportunities to express what you truly value in a relationship. Women in midlife have lived through a lot. They know their worth, and they don't want to be seen as a temporary option in someone's life, just because they're no longer in their 20s. When they ask this question, they want to feel that they are still lovable, still desirable, and more importantly, that they can still be chosen for who they are inside, not passed over for how many birthdays they've had. If you respond with a joke like, who doesn't like dating someone younger, it may come off as dismissive or even hurtful. It can make her feel that you see women only through the lens of age or appearance, rather than through connection and depth. But if you respond with respect and sincerity, you're sending a clear message about what truly matters to you. A thoughtful answer might be, I care more about someone's energy and how we connect in conversation. I've met younger people who feel tired inside, and older ones who are full of life and inspiration. That kind of response doesn't just soften the question, it opens the door to mutual understanding. Mr. Thomas, a 66-year-old man, was once asked this very question by a woman he met in a ballroom dance class. Rather than avoiding it, he looked at her calmly and said, I think real attraction isn't about age. It's about how someone makes you want to walk through life with them. The woman went quiet for a moment, then smiled. And from that evening on, they've been dance partners ever since. Women don't need to be told they look younger than someone else or more beautiful than their peers. They need to feel that who they are, their depth, their life experience, their unique essence is still enough to touch a man's heart. Question 4. What kind of woman do you usually go for? At first glance, this question may seem casual. maybe even like playful small talk. But in truth, it's a quiet way a woman compares herself to the picture you're about to describe. She's not just asking what type you're drawn to. Silently, she's wondering, do I fit that description? Do I stand a chance in your eyes? By midlife, we're no longer swayed by vague standards of attraction. What draws us in isn't just a smile or a figure. It's the feeling of being seen, being safe, and being able to be ourselves. So when a woman asks you this, she's not looking for a checklist of ideal traits. What she's hoping for is a response that makes her feel accepted, appreciated, and included. If you answer with something too specific like, I like tall women who stay fit or always upbeat, and never complain, she may start silently measuring herself against your list. And that can quietly build distance instead of connection. Instead, focus on emotional qualities, things not tied to appearance or age. You might say, I'm usually drawn to women with depth, those who know how to find joy on hard days and who still carry a softness toward life. That kind of answer isn't just inviting, it's comforting. It lets her feel like she can simply be who she is, without needing to mold herself into someone else just to be accepted. There was a time when Mr. Robert, a retired teacher of 63, was asked this very question during a casual coffee with friends. He paused for a moment, then said, I like someone who makes me feel peaceful just by sitting quietly, and who makes silence feel interesting when we're together. The woman across from him looked at him a little longer than before. They didn't say much after that, but a few days later, she was the one who asked him out for a walk. In matters of the heart, we all carry a bit of vulnerability. When you answer a question like this with kindness and sincerity, you create a space safe enough for someone to believe they can step into your life without having to hide or hold back. Question 5. Are you always this charming? When a woman asks you this question, you might laugh, feel a little shy, or assume she's just being playful. But in truth, it's a quiet compliment wrapped in a very clear invitation. She's testing to see if you're confident enough to receive interest, and at the same time, gently opening the door to emotional connection. Many older men have grown used to feeling invisible when it comes to romance. So when someone offers a compliment like this, the instinct is often to downplay it, deflect, or respond with self-deprecating humor. But this is actually a moment where you can show up fully in your masculinity, not through bravado, but by receiving the compliment with warmth and sincerity. If you respond with discomfort or brush it off with something like, oh no, I'm not charming at all, you may unintentionally diminish the spark she's trying to create. But if you accept it like a gift and reply with a touch of lighthearted charm, you turn the moment into something playful, engaging, and connective. You might say, maybe I just shine a little brighter when I'm around the right person. That kind of response is not only clever, it shows that you're confident enough to receive affection and gracious enough to turn it into a shared moment of connection. A great example comes from Mr. Frank, a 61-year-old gentleman, who was once asked this very question during an art class. Instead of brushing it off or changing the subject, he tilted his head slightly and said, not always, but today something does feel a little different. That reply made the woman across from him laugh, and in that shared laughter, the promise of a future meeting quietly passed between them. Women aren't looking for grand gestures. They're hoping to see a man who can smile when he's noticed, respond with warmth, and isn't afraid to let a little real emotion show. That's real charm, not the kind that comes from youth, but the kind that comes from presence. Question 6. Why don't you have a girlfriend? This question isn't just casual curiosity. It carries several layers of meaning, and one of them is a very clear hope. She wants to know if your heart is still open or if it's quietly closed. She's wondering whether you still believe in love, whether you still want to share your life with someone, and whether she might be part of that possibility. After 50, many men live alone, not because they want to, but because they're hesitant to start over. Some have been hurt before. Others stay busy or keep to themselves because they feel overlooked. So when someone asks, why don't you have a girlfriend? What she's really asking is filled with hope. She's gently opening a door to see if you're brave enough to walk through it. Your response to this question can shape how she feels about you. If you answer in a defensive tone, like I don't need a girlfriend or I'm used to being on my own, she might feel the door's already closed. But if you leave just a little room for curiosity and hope, you might spark something natural and meaningful. You could say, maybe I'm waiting for something unexpected. And who knows, maybe it's closer than I think. That kind of response is gentle and positive. It says you haven't given up, you're still open-hearted, and you believe something good could still be on its way. Mark, a 59-year-old man, once shared that he lost a chance at dating simply because he answered too bluntly, I'm too busy for love these days. The woman smiled politely, but she never texted him again. Later, he learned from that moment The next time someone asked him the same question, he simply smiled and said, "I guess I haven't met the right person who makes me want to change that yet." That reply didn't just make the woman feel welcomed. It led to a conversation that lasted for hours. The truth is, what matters most isn't whether you're currently in a relationship. It's whether you still have the capacity to feel, to be moved, and to respond with sincerity. That's what helps a woman feel safe and trusting enough to come closer. Question 7. Would you ever date someone like me? When a woman asks you this question, she's not just being playful. She's taken a risk. She's revealing a tender part of herself and waiting to see whether your response will make her feel safe, respected, and free from judgment. This is a question that's both brave and cautious. Brave because women in midlife rarely express romantic interest so directly. Cautious because she's testing whether you see her true worth. She doesn't need a long answer, but she does need a real one. If you seem awkward, fall silent or dodge the question. She might quietly withdraw. She's not necessarily hoping you'll say yes. What she's truly hoping for is a response that's kind and honest, something that honors her vulnerability. One of the best ways to respond is with warmth and appreciation. You might say, "I think I'd be lucky if that ever happened." That kind of answer gently softens the moment. It gives her reassurance that she's not being rejected or dismissed. And most importantly, it leaves space for something real to unfold, a connection that can grow naturally without pressure. Mr. Michael, age 64, once shared the first time a woman asked him this very question. At first he was surprised, but instead of avoiding it, he smiled and said, "That's a question I think I've quietly hoped someone would ask me." There was nothing flashy in his response, but it was enough for the woman to know. She had been seen with the heart, not just with the eyes. Remember, at any age, showing your feelings takes courage. And when a woman has taken that brave step toward you, the best thing you can do is take one gentle step toward her. No rush, no promises, just a presence that's real, warm, and open. Question 8. What do you usually do on the weekends? In what feels like a light, casual conversation. This may be the softest question of all, but like so many others that midlife women ask with quiet intention. Behind this simple check-in lies a door slightly ajar. She's trying to get a glimpse of how you live, how you spend your time. And more than anything, she's wondering, is there a space in your world where I might belong? She's not asking just to be polite. She wants to know if your weekends are full, or simply repeating the same quiet, solitary patterns. She might also be looking for an opportunity, a chance to offer a gentle invitation, or hoping your answer will lead to a suggestion both of you would welcome. If you respond dryly with, "I don't really do much," or "I mostly just stay home," the conversation may quietly come to a stop. Not because you have to live a busy life, but because the way you speak about your life reveals whether your heart is still open. The best answer is one that shares something real, while leaving space for something new to happen. You might say, "I usually enjoy quiet places, sometimes just a walk in the park near home. But I've always felt weekends are better when there's someone to share them with." That answer isn't pushy, it isn't forced, but it gently lingers in the heart. And if she's looking for a reason to come a little closer, this may be the moment. Mr. Paul, age 60, offered a perfect example. At an art exhibit, a woman asked him this very question. He smiled and said, "My weekends are always open. If someone's plans happen to include a quiet coffee and a good conversation, I'd be glad to join." His reply made her laugh and turned a simple question into a soft, unspoken invitation for a Sunday afternoon. Weekends are personal time, but if you can turn them into moments of connection, of sharing, of simply opening up, then a question as simple as this might just become the beginning of something truly meaningful. Part 3. The silent signals. How to recognize unspoken invitations. Not every invitation to connect is spoken out loud. In fact, most signs that a woman is interested come through the smallest, most delicate details. So subtle that if you're not fully present, they may vanish like they were never there. Women in midlife rarely express their feelings directly. Instead of saying, "I like you," they may simply look at you a little longer than usual. They might tilt their head slightly when you're talking, stand just a bit closer than necessary, or laugh more often, even when your stories aren't exactly funny. These actions aren't random. They're quiet invitations. But to recognize them, you have to let go of doubt and open your heart to notice. The eyes are often the first and most powerful signal. If she watches you closely while you speak, holds eye contact during moments of silence, or glances at you several times in the same room, she's noticing you in a way that goes beyond casual attention. When a woman is interested, she may also change her tone, speaking softer, slower, or with more gentleness than usual. Gestures speak volumes too. A light touch on your hand during conversation, adjusting her hair when you enter the room, mirroring how you sit or how you hold your coffee cup. These seemingly small things are clear signs that she feels comfortable with you and wants to feel in sync. On a psychological level, unspoken signals are often a woman's way of protecting herself. She may fear rejection, so she'll only open up if she feels you're perceptive enough to notice, sincere enough not to misuse her trust, and safe enough for her to be fully herself. So when these signals appear, it's important not to react too strongly or too coldly. Sometimes all you need to do is smile, hold her gaze, and let her see that you're listening with your full presence. Mr. Henry, age 67, once shared a story from an afternoon walk in the park. He struck up a conversation with a woman who happened to sit beside him on a bench. As they parted ways, she gently touched his hand and said, "I hope we meet here again." At first he thought it was just politeness, but a week later he returned at the same hour and she was there too. This time he made the first move. They ended up walking together nearly every week for the next 3 months. Unspoken signals, when met with quiet attentiveness and genuine care, can become the beginning of something deeply meaningful. They don't require analysis, only presence. Presence calm enough to notice, and a heart open enough to respond. Part 4. Psychology and strategies for responding well. Recognizing a signal is one thing, but how you respond to it is what truly determines whether a connection can begin to grow. For women in midlife, what they seek in a relationship is no longer about flashy compliments or surface-level romance. They long for something deeper, a sense of safety, true sincerity, and a man who can be fully present in the moment. At this stage of life, women are often more cautious. They've lived through deep relationships. Some have known loss, disappointment, or heartbreak. So when they open up to someone, what they need most is trust. The feeling that the man in front of them is steady enough to listen without judgment and secure enough not to run from emotion. The key to responding well isn't about saying the right thing. It's about creating a space that feels easy, safe, and open, where the conversation can continue naturally. Instead of trying to impress, simplify. Keep your responses honest, clear, and grounded in your full presence. When you listen not just with your ears, but with your eyes and your posture, she'll sense it immediately. Another important point: avoid vague joking or defensive replies. These can create emotional distance, making her feel brushed off or unseen. Instead, use curiosity as a bridge. If she mentions enjoying gardening on weekends, don't just nod. Ask, "What's the one plant that's hardest to grow but you still want to try?" That small question can open a bigger story. And in that space, both of you may begin to feel seen and heard. Presence is the heart of any good response. You don't need fancy words or grand gestures. Just don't glance at your watch when she's speaking. Just be fully there when you sit down together over a cup of coffee. That kind of presence, calm and undistracted, is the most precious gift you can offer at this stage in life. Mr. Raymond, age 65, once said the reason his relationship with his current partner became so meaningful wasn't because of how he looked or how interesting his stories were. It was because he never tried to impress. He was simply present. He truly listened. He asked just enough questions, and he never made the woman in front of him feel like she had to try hard to be understood. When you live in alignment with who you are, when you listen with respect and respond with calm intention, you're not just responding to a signal. You're building a foundation, one that gives a relationship the space to grow, gently, steadily, in trust and peace. Part 5. Challenges and how to overcome them. Even when the heart still longs for love, connection, and companionship, many men over 50 find the idea of starting over too overwhelming. Not because they lack charm or appeal, but because the invisible challenges within them feel far greater than what others might see on the surface. One of the biggest barriers is self-doubt. After heartbreak, years of solitude, or simply being away from dating for too long, a man can lose confidence in how he connects emotionally. He may feel unsure when someone offers a warm smile. He may wonder whether the interest is real or just polite conversation. He may hesitate, not wanting to risk another rejection, especially when his heart has already known fatigue. Another challenge comes from the shifting social landscape. The roles, expectations, and norms around gender and relationships are no longer the same as they were in younger years. Men were once taught they had to lead, to be firm, to always know what they want. But at this age, many aren't so certain. They want to connect, but worry they'll be misunderstood. They want to open up, but fear being judged. A third challenge lies in the realm of communication itself. Many men have spent most of their lives working, providing for others, carrying responsibilities. When those roles quiet down, some realize they've lost touch with the gentle art of emotional conversation. Expressing oneself honestly, openly, and in a way that still feels natural can be difficult without recent practice. But every one of these challenges can be overcome. You don't need to reinvent yourself. Just start small. Pay closer attention when others speak. Ask a kind question. Hold someone's gaze a little longer during a conversation. These simple acts will help you slowly reconnect with your emotional awareness. Take time to care for yourself, not to feel young again, but to feel healthy, grounded, and strong in who you are. When you look after your appearance, sleep, nutrition, and peace of mind, you begin to feel more deserving of connection. Confidence doesn't come from someone else's compliment. It comes from knowing you're living well day by day. And finally, be willing to take small emotional risks. Smile first. Start a conversation. Don't shrink away when someone asks a question filled with unspoken meaning. Love, like life, always asks for a little courage at the beginning. Mr. Martin, age 68, once said he spent nearly a decade in silence after losing his wife. Then one day at the library, an older woman asked him what book he was reading. That's all. But instead of nodding politely and moving on, he smiled and shared about the book with real enthusiasm. They talked for 20 minutes that day, and in the weeks that followed, he began to feel alive again. All because he chose not to avoid a moment that seemed small. It turned out to be everything. Challenges are inevitable, but they are not the end. They are thresholds, asking whether you're still willing to take one more step forward. And when you do, the reward is not just a relationship, it's a return to yourself, to the man who once knew how to connect with his heart. Part 6, the importance of living authentically. At a certain age, we stop trying to win people's affection by pleasing them. Instead, we begin to learn how to love ourselves through acceptance. And when a man lives in alignment with who he truly is, he doesn't just become more attractive. He creates a sense of safety, honesty, and warmth for those around him. Real attraction, especially in midlife, doesn't come from how you look. It comes from how you live. A man who knows where he's going, who understands what brings him joy, and who isn't afraid to share it, naturally draws others in. Women at this stage in life aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for what's real. And the most real thing you can offer is who you are when you're not trying to impress anyone. Living authentically doesn't mean being rigid or closed off. It's the process of embracing your age, your past, and your wounds as part of your growth. When you can tell your life story without hiding, without shame, and without dressing it up, that's when you begin to radiate your own kind of quiet strength. Part of living authentically is making time for the things that make you feel alive. Maybe it's tending to the little garden behind your home. Maybe it's reading quietly at your favorite coffee shop. Maybe it's learning something new or simply cooking yourself a good meal with intention. When you know how to nourish your own joy, you no longer need someone else to fill a void. And the beautiful part is, that's exactly when others are drawn into your world. Mr. Jonathan, 63, spent years feeling uncertain about himself after retirement, but instead of searching for someone to fill the silence, he started photographing nature. At first, it was just a way to pass time. But over time, it became a passion. One day in the park, as he was capturing sunlight through the leaves, a woman stopped and asked why he chose that angle. They talked for nearly 30 minutes. A few weeks later, she became his companion on photography walks. He hadn't gone looking for someone. He simply lived with truth, and the right thing found its way to him. Living authentically also means honoring emotions, yours and others. It means knowing how to say no when needed. It means recognizing when you're ready and when it's better to step back. It means not rushing out of fear of loneliness and not staying silent out of fear of being misunderstood. When you live like that, every interaction becomes easier because you're not performing. You're simply showing up as yourself. No one else can live your life for you, and no one can love you deeply. If you haven't learned to love yourself with understanding, when you live true to who you are, you don't just become the kind of man others want to be around. You become the man you've always wanted to be, at peace, confident, and full of life no matter your age. Closing words. Love in midlife isn't loud. It isn't rushed. But it carries a depth and quiet beauty all its own. Flirting at this stage of life no longer comes in bold declarations or grand gestures. It shows up in subtle moments, a lingering glance, a question that seems casual, a smile that stays just a little longer after the story ends. If you are present enough, sincere enough, and open enough, you'll begin to realize that the chance to connect has never left. It's always been there, quietly waiting for you to take a step. Together, we've walked through 8 meaningful questions women often use to show interest, the unspoken signals that carry deeper intention, and the inner challenges many men over 50 quietly face. But in the end, it's not about becoming a master of flirtation. It's about whether you're willing to live honestly, to show up with presence, and to believe that emotion, real human heartfelt emotion, still belongs in your life. Age does not take away your magnetism. If anything, it deepens it. It makes you calmer, stronger, more trustworthy in the eyes of women who have also lived through life's seasons. Every conversation, every small sign you notice, is an invitation to build something meaningful, not just for today, but for the days still ahead. If this message has touched something within you, I warmly invite you to subscribe to the Light of Wise Elders channel, a place where we share thoughtful insights, practical advice, and real stories for men who have walked through much and are now living in the richest years of their lives. And if you've ever received a subtle signal or have your own story about connection at this stage of life, please feel free to share it in the comments below. Your experience might just become the light that helps someone else find their way back to love. Thank you for being present, not just here, but in the meaningful life you continue to live each day.